everyone. My name is Rahab a Senior Manager, Data Analytics here at Irembo. Today I'm joined by my colleague.
My name is Jean Paul, and I work in Data Analytics. I'm an analytics engineer.
All right, on today's topic, we'll be talking about analytics engineering here at Irembo. Really, how are we building a modern data stack for scale? Just to give you a little bit of a background, at the analytics function a couple of years back, we were dealing with a different stack than we have right now, where we used to have the database engineers in a very siloed way, which means they were responsible for the production databases, and the data analysts who were responsible to get data from production, implement the maths that need to power the dashboards, as well as go ahead and build the dashboard. And what does this really mean? It means that we did not have anything like data engineers in the pipeline or even analytics engineer. But voila, today, we do have an entire team where we have the database engineers, we do have the data engineers, we have analytics engineer, and now we have the data analysts who are really leveraging on the work of the analytics engineer. So JP, I understand that your work is analytics engineer here at Irembo. How did you find yourself in analytics engineering role?
Thanks, Rahab. I think my journey started at university.
Yeah.
So I went to CMU Africa. I did computer engineering, and then that's when I started to interact with databases, advanced database systems, and then also some SQL-based courses. And then that's when I started to really enjoy this field. And then when I went out of the university, I started to now learn also how to go into the field itself. So I joined a company called Box.
Okay.
And then there was a senior data engineer. Mm-hmm. We started with building data warehouse from scratch. And then I got a chance to now learn DBT, learn the practices of the analytics engineering. And then at that time, I developed a sense of learning and also having that courage to say, I can also actually be in this field. So later I joined MTN.
Yeah.
And then I think it was different kind of setup, but also the experience in data. But then when I joined Irembo, I think those two came together because, as we mentioned, we started as a traditional team where we only used SQL Server.
Yeah.
And then, but also we wanted to be modern.
Yeah.
And then the reason why I said it was kind of a mix is that experience with SQL Server and also the experience with DBT and that modern tech is what really helped me to now start as an analytics engineer here at Irembo.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. I remember when you joined Irembo, you were just a data analyst, and it's good to see that you have really transitioned to a different role that you joined in. So oftentimes people really confuse what is the role of a data engineer and what is the role of an analytics engineer. Could you really narrow it down on what does an analytics engineer really do? And maybe you can also give us, in the context of Irembo, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. As you mentioned, I think some people often confuses data engineering with analytics engineering. And really the difference is data engineers often interact with the raw data, so source data from different sources.
Yeah.
So you could have production data,
Yeah.
you could have data from Excel, you could have data from spreadsheet, but then you want to bring the data together and then put it on the lake somewhere. So that's where really data engineering comes into data ingestion. That's how we call it.
Yeah.
And then once it is there,
Yeah.
now we do some transformations so that users can have the layer of having the dashboard on the side. So at the other side of that journey is where data analysts are sitting. So they are building the dashboard to inform users about how business is doing, how, let's say, how some metrics are performing.
Yeah.
Now, in between, you see that there is something missing, right?
Yes.
So that's where we come in as analytics engineers to ensure that the requirements are now translated into something that can be built by data engineers. So there is that design of data warehouse,
Okay.
the tables,
Yeah.
but there is also the design of the tables ready to be used on the dashboard. So the refinement of the requirement, but also the documentation and ensuring that the tables are not heavy,
Yeah.
that's the work of analytics engineering. So
Okay.
that's the difference.
Thank you. Okay, I think you have really made it clear. From what I'm hearing is that the data engineer, for them, the work is mostly dealing with the raw data.
Yes.
Any source that you want the data to come from, that's
Yes.
the work of the data engineer, and they want to gather data and they put it on the lake.
Yeah.
And then where the analytics engineer really comes in is in the data warehouse, where you design to ensure that it's optimized for analytics, as well as ensuring that analysts, when they're building their dashboards, they're not just consuming heavy tables, but tables that are optimized to run faster.
Exactly.
So I think that's very, very specific, and I think that's a role that it's really evolving in the industry. I would want to really understand, for you to be successful in that particular role, for you to be efficient, definitely there are tools that are used in the industry. Could you shed us more light on how that looks like? What are those tools?
Yeah, so I think in general, not
Yeah.
really specifically here at Irembo, there are tools that are already being used outside, like SQL Mesh, like Coalesce, but of course the one that we've been talking about, which is DBT. So that's the one which is really being used across the industry in even high-tech companies. So DBT is really the most common one. So that's on the transformation layer. So when we talk about transformations, when we talk about ensuring that data are now transformed, cleaned, and they're ready to be used, so DBT is the best one. But also, it's not really about the transformation.
Yeah.
So we have making sure that data are deployed, the models are deployed, and then we have also to ensure that we are monitoring the pipelines. So for the deployment part, the tools like Algo CD, where the CD is sent for continuous delivery.
Yeah.
So that's really something in automations.
Okay.
But also there's that tool for ensuring that we are monitoring the jobs and the data and the models, which is now Darkstar, for example, Airflow. There are other tools that are really used across. But in general, I would say DBT is the common one. When you talk about analytics engineering,
Yeah.
most people really understand DBT
Okay.
because it's the most common one.
All right. Thank you for shedding that light. And I think from that, that's the tool that ideally we use here at Irembo. Could you maybe now give us a more use case? How have you used DBT in your end-to-end? I think this is really important to see the tool at work. What have you been able to achieve? You can provide us maybe an end-to-end use case. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting one. It's really a day-to-day work.
Okay.
Something that I really enjoy. So usually you start with having a use case.
Okay.
Where you say, okay, I have the requirement, I have something that needs to be delivered. So you have requirement from data analyst, you refine them, and then you take it to data engineers if needs be.
Yeah.
And then maybe they create a table from the source tables. And then now you also go and design your math to say, okay, this is going to be the one that is powering the dashboard or the solution that you have designed. And then now DBT comes in between when you are starting to implement. You have everything needed. You have all the requirements and you have the design.
Okay.
And then you start to say, okay, now I need these two tables or one table. Now, where is going to be stored? Is it in the folder where we are storing the tables for the dashboard? Is it somewhere else? So for example, let's say a scenario where you have a use case. Let's say a client like RDB is requesting you to create a dashboard. You want to make sure that the dashboard is always available.
Yes.
It's high availability.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, even if I need this, but I have to change things around because maybe they still have a lot of data.
Yeah.
So you structure that in a way that you have raw table,
Yeah.
but also aggregated table. So that means the folders now are different in DBT.
Okay.
So you design, let's say, one folder for the raw, another folder for the aggregated. And then there's a model for that row, and then there's a model for aggregated. And then in the row, you need to define which tables am I using.
Okay.
Yeah. So in that way, in the schematic, there's also another file where you define all those sources. Okay, you say, okay, I need this fact table, dimension table, and all of that. And then that is the row table. And then
Yeah.
you go to the aggregated table, which is now going to use the row.
Okay.
So for that one, it's very easy. You just reference the row table, and then you can use it. And then after that, you run your models, you compile, you clean your project, and then you deploy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I think that sounds a lot for someone who is not from a technical background.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm really hearing here is that already in the data warehouse, we have ensured that we do have facts and we do have dimensions.
Yes.
And these are really built to ensure that analytics are optimized.
Yes.
And from this now data warehouse, this is where you're using DBT for transformation to create a mat that fits the needs of the data analyst.
Yeah.
This will ensure that you're giving the data analyst the raw data, yes, but also they're aggregated to ensure that the end product, which is the dashboard, loads
Right.
quickly.
Right.
It doesn't have timeouts, and the data is always available. I think that really a key area. I can now see where the analytics engineer really work.
Yeah.
I think the other aspect is that when we are developing, we follow software engineering practices, best practices, where we don't build in production.
Yeah.
We build in other environments. So could you walk us through how do you set up on your first time, how do you set up to ensure that you're able to push your model from the staging to the production, as well as how does it look like thereafter? Again, these are tools that we are using to scale, and we are trying to ensure that even if tomorrow the citizens of Rwanda double, we are still able to provide analytics efficiently within the same resources.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because the beauty of analytics engineering is that you can introduce software practices where you not only provide the solution as dashboard or report, but you are also ensuring that in your team, you can control what you deliver.
Yeah.
You can control your solutions. So that's really the reason why we have the same setup as those other teams, which we didn't really have before, as you mentioned. That's why really we are now in a modern tech stack. So the way we set up here is you have testing environment.
Yeah.
So as a developer or as an engineer, you have a dev where you are storing your models, you are writing your SQL script to ensure that once you ship that to production, they are not crashing, they are still working. So you test, that's when I said you have the folders and all of that. You can create a new folder, you can delete a folder, you can add script, you can add the code. And then once you do that, once everything is okay, you take that code of your project into another environment, which is for now, let's say UAT or staging. That's where, let's say, for example, in an organization, they have testing environment where users can come in and do some testing before a solution can go to production. So we have access to those data to ensure that we can also use them to test our solutions. So in that way, you are building the same thing that will go to production, which means you are almost sure that once you go to production, it's going to be easy. Same setup. Let's say if you're using Argo CD for deployment, if you're using GitHub for actions and all of that, same thing that you do before go to production. And then once everything is okay, now you can put to production. Once all the environment have passed, now you go to production. So that's how we use the testing and software practices. That's how we also put them into data analysis or data
All
analytics.
right. Well, thank you for that. I think the aspect that you're really speaking to is that in really scaling and in analytics engineer, leveraging those best practices is important. And I think that helps us to ensure that if we have a release, we don't just release it directly in production. It's already tested in other environments. And if we go to production and it doesn't work, it rolls back.
Yeah.
Obviously, here we are talking of continuous integration, continuous deployment. And from your earlier mentions, you have collaborated with data engineers before getting to implement your work.
Yeah.
Going to production, are there other teams that you probably initially work with to ensure that you have the right pipelines and the right automation?
Yeah.
And how does that look afterwards?
Yeah, I think really that's how we end up successfully deploying our solutions.
Yeah.
So when you are setting up all your project to ensure that you can take from dev
Yeah.
to UAT to production, you need that automation part
Yeah.
where you don't do all the work
Yeah.
by yourself.
Yeah.
So that's how collaboration comes in addition to data engineers, as I mentioned, where you need the data from different sources.
Yeah.
You also need that automation part, and that's where DevOps comes in.
Okay.
So they really support in a way that you need to set up the Argo CD, for example, to ensure that you can have, for example, an autonomy to do things yourself. But at first, let's say when the project is starting,
Yeah.
you sit together with them, you show the design and what you need to achieve,
Yeah.
and then they say, okay, now our work is now to help you, let's say, for example, create a database
Yeah.
in this environment.
Yeah.
And then we give you a user that DBT will be using
Yeah.
when you are deploying. And then we also need to ensure that that user has necessary access
Okay.
to, let's say, select from tables, drop tables, store the tables inside, and all of that. Once that is done, now you also need to ensure that Darkstar is also set up to monitor anything that will be deployed. So all those work at first, you collaborate with DevOps for the first deployment. But then after the work has been done, when you want to continue now to monitor your work, or let's say you need to deploy a new feature,
Yeah.
you need to add a new column to
Yeah.
your tables. Now, there are two choices that you can really take.
Yeah.
One is you can continue to rely on them,
Yeah.
and each time you need to deploy a new feature,
That's a lot of work
yes,
and
it's really a lot of
dependency.
work. Yeah. Because you might end up waiting for days,
Yeah.
and users need their solutions, right? But that's where the second option comes in,
Yeah.
where you can now be able to do everything by yourself. And I think actually it's one of the best things as an analytics engineer that you can do, having that ownership from start to end. You have everything needed, but also implementation, you can do it yourself. So that autonomy
Yeah.
of saying, okay, I will deploy my solution using the tools. Let's say, for example, using GitHub, using Argo CD from start to end. So there's a way we do where we automate the syncing between Argo CD and GitHub,
Yeah.
where once you create your release,
Yeah.
it is automatically picked up by Argo CD, but you need to ensure that you're aware of what you're deploying and the versioning part that you mentioned, so that you know if I've deployed this, if anything goes wrong, I can go back and change things. So that's the autonomy part. And here at Irembo, in our team,
Yeah.
we're able to achieve that, which is really quite remarkable. So ensuring that as analytics team, we can start from scratch, gathering requirement to the end,
Yeah.
without really depending on other teams to achieve that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really great. I think now the result of the work that I've seen is that we actually it's very easy for us these days to take a dashboard to production.
Right.
We really do not have to depend on giving the hot fix or a release to a DevOps engineer. And that really speaks to the fact that we have really owned the entire pipelines of deploying our marts, deploying any changes that we make. And that ensures that we equip our data analyst with the right tools and the techniques for them to deliver quickly.
Yeah.
So I think at this particular point, I would want to maybe get to hear what have been your interest learnings during this journey. I think every time when we say we want to scale, the journey comes with its own wins and challenges, and these might be new opportunities. What is an interesting thing that you have learned?
Yeah.
As well as from your perspective, what is the impact also that the role is really creating?
Yeah, I think I'll start with the impact. I think you touched upon it where you said we are now delivering the dashboard in a very quick way. I think that's really the first impact we've managed to achieve.
Yeah.
Where now in the organization we can really use the data to provide the solution, to provide insights in real time, and also in a manner where business users can make decisions using our dashboard and solutions. And I think we've been able to achieve that because of these new ways of doing or manipulating data.
Yeah.
I think the way of ensuring that we have autonomy had made sure that we can be able to provide solutions in the quickest way possible. For the challenges, as you mentioned, it's a lot of challenges. When you are coming up with a new solution, it's always challenges, really. I think, first of all, when we used to use just SQL Server, you owned everything, right?
Yeah.
You could start from interacting with PostgreSQL.
Yeah. This is production. Yeah.
It is just designed for application, right? Not ready for analysis.
Yeah.
And then you create a solution out of it. So you bring the data directly to SQL Server.
Yeah.
You create a table, and then you provide a solution in it. But then you are skipping quite a lot of steps in between.
Yeah.
So now the fact that we changed that, so this project that we brought in, the challenges I would say would be getting comfortable with it, right?
Yeah.
So for example, the example I gave about RDB, the solution is already in production, but every day we have issues because it's already being used by the users.
Yeah.
And we need to ensure that always they have accurate data, and the dashboard is always showing the correct data. So, for example, there's an issue where I would say the refresh is taking time. There's an issue with the refresh times. So that challenge brought the learnings in between, where we say, okay, now we can think about changing the type of refresh in dbt.
Okay. Yeah.
And instead of doing a full refresh, for example, we changed to do incremental refresh.
Yeah.
So those are the types of refresh in dbt. But also it also exists in other types of tools. So the challenge that happened made us really think about other ways of now coming up with that type of refresh. And also even implementing it, it's not really straightforward. It's try and error. You try it, maybe it fails, but you need to act as quick as possible because the solution is in production. So it's like you are operating in an environment where it's really fast. You need to act fast, so because you are delivering things that you never delivered before. So that's one of the challenges we faced, but I think we managed to also find solution to the challenges.
Wow. I think what I'm hearing, these are the challenges that we are facing right now are really challenges that come into play when an organization is really moving from a small scale to really scaling up. Because when you talk about data refresh, when you have small data, you can actually be able to just drop the table, recreate it with new data every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But then when you scale up and you have millions of data and you want to refresh the data, you literally cannot be dropping the table every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
These queries are expensive. They are going to take time. The dashboards are going to be out the time that you're refreshing. And I think that's what really calls for the broader thinking concept, where you really have to leverage incremental approach to ensure that your solutions are still available, the dashboards are still available to the users, but also you are refreshing on a timely manner.
That's right.
All right. So I think what I'm really picking from this conversation is that an analytics engineer at Irembo has really come to play a big role, where we are bridging the gap between the data engineers and the data analysts.
Yeah.
And really, we are building infrastructure that is ensuring that we're delivering solutions faster, we're delivering solutions in a timely manner, and we are not missing any updates. Maybe as your parting remarks, do you have anything that you'd like to advise to someone who is looking up to start maybe their career path towards analytics engineer, or someone who is in a different organization practicing the same role? What are your parting remarks?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think it's really an interesting role.
Yeah.
And it's new in that ecosystem, really.
Yeah.
Most people would say they started as BI developers and then they transitioned to data analyst, and then they became maybe, let's say, machine learning engineer.
Yeah.
But then that role, it has been new for some time.
Yeah.
But it's an important one.
Yeah.
So I would advise really the guys to really try it out. The skills, as we mentioned, if you're really good at SQL, you can learn DBT. You can use those tools like Argo CD and Daxter. So check them out, see if you can really have that interest, and learn, maybe let's say practice, create your own DBT project.
Yeah.
It's possible. You don't need to pay for it. You can try it on your computer, see if it works locally, and then start from that.
Yeah.
And then you grow in the career. So yeah, that's one of the things. But also for people who are already using it. So for example, you are already in analytics engineering, you're already using DBT. I would say also, what are other tools that you use apart from DBT? Are you using SQL Mesh? Are you using Coalesce?
Yeah.
Are you using Dataform by Google?
Yeah.
Because there are also others that are really user interface, not really for code-based.
Yeah.
Which ones are you using? How do you interact with data analysts? How do you interact with data engineering or DevOps? As it is, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. I think to the audience would want to know how you are doing analytics engineering at your company, at a project. How are you practicing that? And in case you have any other topic that you'd want to know on how we do it here at Irembo, please leave questions on this podcast and we will get back to you. Thank you. And thank you, JP, for sharing your experience and for really walking us through how your career has been, how you have transitioned from a BI developer, data analyst, and now you're an analytics engineer. I think really this means that as long as you have the fundamental skills that you have highlighted, one can be able to move from those roles and actually be able to mature in the role. So
exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rahab.
All right.